Well, hello everyone. Welcome to week 3 of this seminar. We continue with our uh, exercise of deciding what are the best strategies in order to create value. Last week we focused on competition, uh, both on competitive strategies and competitive environments. So we basically defined that we had a set of competitive environments: perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly. And then we discuss how every single competitive environment drives different strategies, and based on this we have different levels of results: perfect competition with negative EVAs, monopolistic competition EVAs close to zero, oligopolies around 6% or more, and monopolies around 10% or more. This week we are going to discuss one of the where you are going to implement these ideas on your own organizations. So you will have to analyze the environment and you will have to define the strategies in your organization. So this is an application of what we discussed last week. Since I already explained you all the theory, I'm not going to repeat the theory now, but what I'm going to do is focus on the question number 2 and 3, that is the SWOT analysis. So and this is something that is extremely central for you as strategic managers, because the SWOT analysis is a very central tool that helps you to connect the environments and the strategies, and both with your own resources, internal resources. And normally students don't do a good job with this, so we need to explain it so you can do it well. Strengths and weaknesses are connected with competition and competitiveness, market power. Strength is like a muscle, so you have a muscle and the competition has another muscle, and basically what you're doing is comparing how much stronger you are compared to others, or the opposite. And this is the core of strengths and weaknesses. So everything is strengths and weaknesses about competition. Opportunities and threats, if you want to visualize it in a better way, let's call business opportunities. That is clearly connected with growth and innovation. And you will see that this has little to do with competition. Yes, it has to do with competition, because sometimes you grow by way of being stronger than the competition. But you already discussed that, so we're not going to repeat the same discussion. What we are going to do here is focus on the second part, that is, what do you have to do in order to grow. And in both cases, the core is your resources. So the resources are responsible of your strengths, and your resources are responsible for your ability to develop opportunities and threats. I'm sorry, to develop opportunities. Okay, so let's talk about the first part of the SWOT, that is strengths and weaknesses. You somehow started to analyze last week everything that is connected to the competitive environment. And remember, we talked about Porter 5 forces, that is when you analyze an environment that has competition. When there is no competition, you cannot use Porter. Then you have to use other tools, as we discussed. Game theory for the case of oligopolies that don't compete, and the resource-based view of the firm for the case of monopolies that don't compete either. But now we are competing, and this is the beginning of the strengths and weaknesses. So there is no strengths and weaknesses when you don't compete. That is kind of the central concept. So what they basically did last week, we saw how using Porter 5 forces you can define basically what is the average level of profitability of the entire industry, so everyone in the business. So some companies will do better based on their competitive strategies, and some companies will do worse based on their competitive strategies. So this is basically what the Porter famous book says. This is the first book that Porter wrote, is called Competitive Strategies. It was very, very famous. Everyone in town read this book. The second book that Porter wrote was called Competitive Advantages, and Competitive Advantages is much more connected with the strategies, and they are kind of the raw material to develop the strengths and weaknesses, to detect the strengths and weaknesses. What Porter said is something very clear, is that companies have like two variables. One is what is the perceived value that they develop for the clients. Perceived value is how much they satisfy their clients. I'm going to explain in more detail what is this concept in a minute. And second is how much they charge to the customers. And based on this, you have like four options. Number one is if your price is low and your perceived value is high, okay, that's excellent. So this is this quadrant that basically tells you that you deliver a very good product or service with an excellent quality and a low price. You are going to be very successful. The other extreme is when your price is high and your quality is low, or the perceived value is low. In this case, nobody is going to buy from you. And in the middle, you have like different alternatives, like a big, okay, that I'm going to explain that in a minute in a chart that's going to be much more visual for you. And what Porter invented was the concept of value chain. He said, in order to understand how companies perceive value, you need to understand the value chain of each company. So you have different competitors, and the customers are standing in front of the different competitors, and the customers must assess what are the perceived values of the different competitors. Consequently, which provides a better mix of values according to the need of the customers. So, and based on this value chain and based on the cost chain, that cost chain is a much more financial concept if you want, but Porter defined that. With the value chain, you analyze the perceived value. With the cost chain, you analyze the price. And this is very much what this book focuses on. So, based on this, I put together an Excel file that I send you by email to everyone, that I strongly recommend that you use this Excel file and experiment with these ideas, because this will help you to really grab what is the concept of strengths and weaknesses that is so central for a strategic manager. The first thing is, when you have to analyze the strengths and weaknesses, is you have to realize that the different customers, they have different they expect different value chains. So consequently, one customer is expecting, for example, this example was I did it by to analyze universities. So students that are thinking about whether to study in this and this and this university. So okay, what are the students looking for? Okay, they come to the universities because they want to get some knowledge, because they want to get some reputation, to find a job that they want to put in their CVs that they studied in such and such university, that networking, friends, connections, and all the physical, the technical part. But this is not not only the value chain is important, but also it's important the weight of each one of these attributes. For example, most likely for students, knowledge is going to be very central, prestige also. Maybe networking is not going to be so central. Maybe yes, maybe not, but this is not the central reason why you go to study. And maybe the physical part is definitely less relevant. Okay, as you can imagine, in the business world, you have probably much more attributes. When you are a company like you produce whatever product or service, your value chain can be much larger than this one. So I just made a simple example. And to define each one of these things, you need to do a whole market research to see exactly what are customers looking for, and how they weight all these expectations. The second part that you will find in this Excel file that I gave you, the strengths and weaknesses, is to analyze not the demand, I mean not what the customers are looking for, but the supply. So what the suppliers, the providers, the different competitors are offering to the potential customers. So in this case, the Excel file is larger, but I just put a small picture, otherwise you won't be able to read the fonts. So you have two universities. One university has this value chain. This continues with what you have at the top. Remember, the first is knowledge, the second is reputation, the third is networking, and the fourth was premises and technology. So this is a continuation of the previous slide. So this is the value chain, and this is what the two universities deliver, if you want. The knowledge is the way to measure the knowledge. You have to do like a market research if you want, or an analysis or whatever, and see what is the quality of the education. You see, this university has more PhDs, more papers published, more books in the library. This has less. So consequently, to this university, you will provide a higher perceived value than to this university. This is kind of abstract, if you want, but the exercise is valid. This is important, and companies do this exercise all the time. The same with reputation. This is accredited. This has a lower quality accreditation. So based on this, you realize that the perception of value is better in this university than in this university. So consequently, you will have like an average of all the perceived values for this university. So how the students perceive what this university delivers. So you see here what is the concept of value, of what is perceived value, is quality, and is many attributes. So it can be something that pretty wide. And the same this university. You see that this university has a lower perception by the students. And using this value perception, you put here the number that comes from the previous page, and here is how much the universities charge for the tuition or whatever. You can map here the different universities. So this university provides, or let's say this one, Herbert, provides the highest value, but at the same time it's very expensive. So the students consider both factors, supply and demand. So here, this good deal has a little less perceived value than this one, but is substantially more affordable, substantially cheaper. This university, middle country, is in a kind of a weak situation because doesn't provide a very good perceived value, if you want. So, and it's expensive, comparatively expensive. So what the students will do, so the potential students, potential customers, they will make like an assessment. They will have like an average, and will realize that good deal is above the average. So most likely, many students will move from these universities to these universities. This is kind of a first analysis, but the analysis is much deeper and is much more interesting. But let's realize first, so what is strengths and weaknesses? Okay, strengths and weaknesses is basically all these resources or actions that we saw in the previous slide, that they are responsible for how the different companies are positioned into this map. So, and you realize automatically, as we discussed in the past, that the actions are weak producers of perceived value, because actions can be easily imitated. For example, if a university has a strategic action of advertising, okay, competition can advertise the next day. If a university has a strategic action of reducing prices, okay, competition can reduce prices the next day, and so on. But resources are not so easy to imitate. So if a company like Intel develops the resource or the technology to develop unique chips, practically it's going to be very hard for other companies to do it. It can take a decade to imitate Intel's ability to develop chips. Or Microsoft. Microsoft has a resource that has a standard that 95% of the users of computers use a Microsoft Office or Microsoft Windows, and it's very difficult for another provider or software developer to get this standard or invest the money, or the billions of dollars that Microsoft has invested. Consequently, that's also a resource, a unique resource. So you see here that you can have a very clear perception of strengths and weaknesses, but it has many other consequences. You have to put like a third axis here, and the third axis is frequency. I mean, how many potential students you have in each part. Probably you are in a recession, and the students don't have money, and probably all the students don't have money and cannot afford an expensive university. So probably all the students will be here in the $20,000 tranche, if you want. So consequently, probably cheap universities having the right strategy, and probably what's going to happen is that that all the students will move from the other universities towards cheap university. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the society is very affluent, and so you have in the third dimension, the third axis, you have a high frequency or high percentage of the students are affluent. Probably 90% of the students can afford a 100,000 university, a tuition university. So consequently, everyone will move to Harvard. So this is so in that case, and this is when game theory enters into this discussion, is that you will realize how the other universities will have to move to the position where Harvard is. If people are mostly affluent, and if people are in a recession, they don't have the money, most likely all the universities will move towards the position where cheap university is. Otherwise, they will lose all their students. And also, there's other dynamic situations here, like, for example, let's say that all the students switch towards a good deal. Okay, so consequently, middle country will have to react, reduce the prices, or improve the level of quality or perceived value. So there is a dynamic dimension that is very powerful in this slide. So you see how the concept of strengths and weaknesses has so many components, so many ingredients that are so important in your discussions. So we are incorporating all the concept of resources. You see that is absolutely critical, and we are incorporating all the concept of game theory. So how whatever strategy you launch, you will have an effect, and basically you are going to produce changes everywhere in the chart. You see. So the competitors are going to react, and they are going to change their strategies, and eventually one day everyone will be positioned on the same place. Or as I told you, changes in the frequency, in the number of students in each branch. So probably we can get to, if we have like a distribution chart behind, and we can have like a bell, one of these bells, we can say, okay, most of the students are here, or most of the students are here, or the composition is even, or there are some here, some here, some here. So you need to put behind like this third dimension and see where the students are. Okay, so this is the first part of the discussion, the strengths and weaknesses. Okay, let's move into the second part of the SWOT, the opportunities and threats. If you want to have a clear vision, is let's call business opportunities, so your ability to grow. And you grow basically when you have the right resources to transform external factors into a business opportunity. So there is a change in the industry, in the technology, a change in the amount of money, a change in human resources, or a change in the market, the changes in demand, or changes in the economy, and you are able to transform these external factors into a business opportunities, into a business opportunity. And you may wonder, like normally the way people do it is whenever they analyze this in a very wrong way, they say, okay, the economy is down, consequently I don't have business opportunities, and it's not correct. Probably in the worst time of the economy is the best time for you. Let's say you are a lawyer specialized in foreclosures, and in 2008, when there are millions of people losing their houses because of this crack in the real estate market, this is a golden time for you. Probably it was the best time in years, because this is when you're going to have thousands of customers, knocking your door, like help me to avoid a foreclosure. If you are a company that is specialized in a software that helps to reduce costs, in a recession like 2010 or 2009, it's an excellent time for you, because in recession is when people take care of low costs. So recessions is not bad for you, it's good for you. So consequently, it doesn't matter what happens outside. What happens is what are your resources and how you transform the external realities into your benefit, if you want. So this is if you want, the core of this analysis, and based on this, you can build this chart or whatever chart. This is something that is probably useful for you. This is an example of real life. So this is many years ago, was working in the corporate world, and this was the conclusion of all our analysis. That is the impact of external factors on us based on our resources was mostly negative, and all these different factors or actors or whatever had a higher or lower probability of occurrence, if you want. So consequently, our future looked very gloomy because we had a lot of threats and we didn't have a lot of opportunities. So you see how you can use this type of analysis. You can convert information from the external reality into strategies and into what you are going to do and how the future can look like. I also posted an Excel file. I sent you an Excel file also by email. So use this Excel file to experiment with these ideas. So you realize how strengths and weaknesses have nothing to do with opportunities and threats. They are completely different animals, and you need to use both tools to see how you are going to create value. Thank you, and good luck.